Welcome to Ed Fluential Sports, where passion meets precision. As I'm your host, Ed, diving deep into the plays, players, and stories shaping the game. And today, I got my brother Dave here with me. Say what's up to the people.
Yo, Ed, thank you so much. It's always an honor and a blessing to be on Ed Fluential Sports talking basketball. Glad to be here and yeah, go ahead and subscribe at Wrestling with Things when y'all get a chance on YouTube.
Yes, sir. So we're going to have NBA Finals preview. It's guaranteed for the eighth straight year we get a new NBA champion, which I think is dope. I love it there. But let's start by talking about the Knicks. Been a lot of talk about the Knicks, how they got here, the easy path this, easy path that. They still got to the finals at the end of the day. And their toughest challenge was the Hawks in the first round. That was funny. But back-to-back sweeps, now they're in the finals. What do you think of the Knicks' run so far?
You know, I think two things could be true at the same time. I do think clearly the East and who the Knicks had in front of them was easier competition. But at the same time, I am not going to disrespect the Knicks. I have great respect for the New York Knicks. You know, the fact that not only are they beating their opponents, I think the other side of this is not only they're beating their opponents decisively, you can only beat who's in front of you, and they're doing exactly what they're doing. So I think those two things could be true, but it's not just that they're winning, it's how they're winning. They're beating teams on an average point differential of 19 points. Like that's historic levels. So it just really proves that they're hungry. It really is a good story for the city of New York. Like, I'm happy for New York fans. And I think this is a hell of a run. And to be honest with you, I know we'll never be able to prove it, but I think they would be capable of this run even if they ran into like a Boston Celtics, healthy or not, because their team was built to beat the Celtics and they beat the Celtics last year. So it's so interesting how the Hawks was their kind of toughest round, because I think they just kind of snuck up on them and maybe took the Hawks a little lightly. You know, the Hawks got some nice up and coming players in Jalen Johnson and Nikhil Alexander Walker, and it was the veteran CJ McCollum who was busting their behind, which was really, nobody would have expected that, even though CJ's no scrub. But I think the Knicks have done what they needed to do, and I think we got to respect it, because normally as an organization, they would have choked, they would have blew up the team for some washed up star. Like, that's what New York was doing a lot historically, but they kept this team together. Jalen Brunson took a pay cut to keep this team together, and here they are in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, Jalen. I'm pretty sure Jalen Brunson is getting money under the table. Hey, it can't be pretty. He took $100 million pay cut. I'm convinced. I respect it. You got to do what you got to do to win. But I'm glad
That
you brought up.
money, he'll make up that money
Yeah,
if they win a title, you know?
and he made All NBA second team, so that's gonna be a bonus there.
Yeah,
But I'm glad you brought up the Celtics because a lot of people talked about that matchup. What if they played the Celtics? Well, what if the Celtics didn't blow a 3-1 lead? They were up 3-1 in the first round, so it's like
exactly.
obviously everybody wants to see the matchup because it's the biggest matchup in the East at this point, and we just seen last year the Knicks 1-6, but the Celtics with the 3-1 lead. Maybe Tatum came back a bit too early, and he re-aggravated his injury before he missed Game 7. So I can't blame that on the Knicks. Like you said, you got to play who's in front of you. I think the Hawks Game 6 was bad, but aside from that, the Hawks they were competitive for a young team. They're gonna be back. I think a few more pieces, like you said, they got Jalen Johnson, Kuminga, CJ, but I think they'll be back in the playoffs or at least
Bright
close to it
future.
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, but I think what's been most important for the Knicks is Cat, because Cat he's been known as a playoff dropper, hasn't been great when it comes to the playoffs, and this year he's stepped up on both ends of the floor. His defense has been solid. He made Evan Mobley struggle in the Cavs series. I hadn't seen Evan Mobley play that bad. And then offense, he's taking a step up, the second best playmaker behind Brunson. I'm seeing Cat take that leap is really help propel the Knicks to this run. That's a step up from last year. You get eliminated conference final, it's going to the NBA finals.
That is a great point, Ed. It's interesting. It's almost like they kind of tweak their play style to give Cat more touches, and that kind of helps save Jalen Brunson's energy and makes them less Jalen Brunson centric. Because when he has to dribble too much and do everything, that can tire him out and make them predictable. But it's almost like now that Cat is kind of like playing some point center and making passes, it's almost like it's made them a totally better team. Um, and the interesting about Cat is I almost think, yeah, he's not a perfect player. He can be a little soft if you ask him to bang down low full time with centers like Rudy Gobert and Jokic. That is his weakness. But I think Cat is very underrated. Cat is a career basically 22 and 10 guy. Cat will always get you a double double. Cat is one of the best shooting big men ever. I
I
think
think I
his
think he's second.
consistency is underrated.
I think he's second best big man shooter behind Dirk.
Has to be. He has to
Yeah,
be, like, statistically and by the eye test. Like, he is a great shooter. He's a great rebounder, and now he's showing another dimension as like a passer. I think that's really helping the Knicks go a long way. And I think the role players like OG Anunoby and Landry Shamet, like I honestly think OG Anunoby, it may sound weird, is their most important player because when he plays good, that's a good sign that everything's clicking. When he plays good and he's their best perimeter defender, it's almost like they're almost unbeatable when he does that. And their bench is slept on. That's what Tom Thibodeau didn't do in previous years. Now you got McBride, you got Shamit, you even got
yeah,
Jose Alvarado, you got Mitchell Robinson doing the dirty work. So their depth is something to be respected too.
yeah. I agree with the OG point. He was out for a little bit in the regular season, and you could see the defense take a clear drop off. Like they still was able to put together a few wins, but without he was on what all defensive first team, if I'm not mistaken. It was not first, second, but he was the best defenders in the league for a reason.
Yeah, definitely a slept on. He's not a star, but he's like a borderline star in his role. Like he
Yeah,
that 3 and D role, very few are gonna do it better. Uh,
yeah. Now let's transition to the team on the opposite side. Yes, they got here a first round. Them and the Blazers both inexperienced teams, but clearly the better team was. That wasn't no surprise. They were the team, but Wimby, they did him Castle, all the young guys. Second round, they throw the team in the back-to-back Western Conference Finals. Lose game one, but all the games they winning in that series, they dominated. They won one close one. The Spurs, a dominant 6 game series. They didn't even feel like 6. Then they just dominated champions in 7 games. Game one on the road with De'Aaron Fox out, despite Castle having 100 turnovers through the first 2 games. But the Spurs, they're in the NBA Finals. How you feeling about your Spurs?
Man, seriously, I was spoiled as a Spurs fan for a while. I feel fantastic. Like the sun is shining differently. Like I got a pep in my step. Like if you love sports and you truly loyal to your team and you have been, sports hits different when your team is competing at the highest level. And I didn't have that feeling of not seeing the Spurs competitive for a while because in the Tim Duncan era, we made the playoffs like 22 straight years. So I was always used to at least having a little shot. But man, these past 7 years, sports sucked when the Spurs weren't competitive. It feels normal to see a great organization like them back into the finals. But in also, I'll say in all seriousness, I knew this team had it in them. Like, I know it defies traditional basketball logic because for the most part, all the greats do have to lose before they get it. LeBron had to lose a couple years in Cleveland, and he lost his first year in Miami before he got the ring. Kobe had his lumps, had to come off the bench at first, but then won with Shaq. Like, I know conventional wisdom, you gotta mostly lose before you win. But
You could also use Magic and Bill Russell. They
that's a
won rookies.
that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. They were one of the rarefied airs, and I think Wemby's going to be in that rarefied air one way or another. That's the beautiful part about this. I think the Spurs are going to win this convincingly, and it feels great that they are in this. I respect the Knicks. I think they'll do it in 6 games, but in a crazy way, the Spurs got nothing to lose because if they lose this one, we know they're gonna be in multiple finals for years to come. Like, it may not be multiple finals in a row, but we know Wemby's gonna be competitive. So it's almost like they're so ahead of schedule. Everybody was like, they're not gonna get this far. They're too young. They got to take their lumps first. But I think they're showing they're not ordinary young guys. Stephon Castle, he was turning over the ball over a lot in games 1 and 2. I think he's the reason we lost. But he made adjustments, and having De'Aaron Fox was a big help. And I don't think he's getting enough credit as a veteran who's been in playoff situations and still keeps us organized down the stretch. But our young guys are very mature young guys. Dylan Harper made big bucket after big bucket in fourth quarters and late game situations. So
He made play of the game in Game 7, holding Castle.
yeah,
Because you
so
can't risk him getting ejected.
yeah, exactly. He calmed them down. Like, these are grown men, veteran plays from young guys, and I just think they're showing that the youth and inexperience isn't going to be the problem. The only thing that's going to stop them is themselves, honestly. And I just think that this is really the start of a generational player winning multiple championships.
Yeah. And I love Mr. Johnson as a coach. The
Yeah,
specific moment that made me a big fan of him is the Carter Bryant situation.
yeah,
Yell at him. Yell. It's the playoffs. The most important. Like, he needed that, and you have seen his confidence went up after that.
yeah,
But
exactly.
Mr. Johnson,
He played a good role in bothering SGA a little bit with this
yeah.
left. He played a good series. It didn't look like it on the stat sheet, but Carter Bryant's a good, nice piece too.
And then this is Mr. Johnson's first full season. He coached a little bit last year, but Pop had the stuff going on. Shout out to Pop.
The health
But,
scare, yeah.
yeah. But Mr. Johnson, he's been like, how many coaches played 60 games in their first full season coaching? Like, you don't see that. You don't see that often.
I know, and that's also a testament. I'm glad you dropped his name. Shout out to Greg Pop. Can't overstate that enough. Like, that just goes to his learning tree and being like under that learning tree all these years. Like, he he's like, that's like the trend with these Spurs. They're young. They haven't been in these situations, but they know how to act like they've been here before. It's like they're like Javon Evans. They're young OGs. Like, they're young, but I got the mindset and the composure and the the masculine frame to stay calm under pressure and do what I need to do. And like, it's really an anomaly in sports because usually you do have young players that are just boneheaded and just want to play for stats or just want to
Yeah,
enter a flow, but nobody's doing that. They don't care who scores and who gets the shine. And low key, the MVP of that game, Julian Champagny, our best
yeah,
pure shooter, the best pure shooter on the Spurs. Like, he's one of those guys. He snuck up on even me as a longtime Spurs fan because I'm like, man, he ended up in the starting lineup, and I'm like, at first I was questioning why. I like Harrison Barnes in that role, but I see why he's in that with the lineup.
yeah. Speaking of Harrison Barnes, they also got good vets on that team. What's Fox? He been in the league for a little minute now, but he limits the turnovers. See, with having him back, less turnovers. Bismack Biyombo, even if he don't play, him just talking to Wimby, like he's been in the league, what, for 15,
Long
14.
time.
Then you got Harrison Barnes, who's been in Game 7, who's played. he was with the Warriors when it was Harrison Barnes. They beat no KC.
Real talk. He was there in the original Warriors ring. Like, come on, man. He showed that whether it was him or KD, you can win a ring in that system. That's how. That's why the KD rings are they're interesting. But that's neither here nor there. But like, it's incredible the Spurs depth. Even though we talked about the Knicks depth, if there's a team that matches it perfectly, even Keldon Johnson finally gave us something in that game 7. That was a big part of why we won. Like when we get him going and Harper off the bench, and you're right. Veterans like Biyombo still are kind of like a extra coach on the floor. And let's not forget a veteran like Kelly Olynyk and Luke Cornett.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we got some guys to support
Cornette
the
had a
young
big
guys.
block
Yeah.
on who was
That
that?
was the
John?
biggest block of the year. Anybody can say I'm exaggerating. That was the biggest block of the year.
That's one momentum of that game.
Yeah, you can tell after that the building didn't feel the same. They didn't feel like they believed in him anymore. Like the fact that a guy who's not known for hustling back on the other end, he ran and did that. Like that was awesome. That was great.
Now we done talked about how both teams got here. Now let's talk about what both teams need to do to win. So we'll start with the Knicks and we'll talk about X factors too. For the Knicks, what do you think they had to do to potentially win this finals matchup?
Honestly, I I honestly, again, I respect the Knicks. I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible. I think it's highly unlikely that they win this. I convincingly think Spurs in 6. But if the Knicks want their best chance, Jalen Brunson's going to have to average 30, and Cat's going to have to keep doing what he's doing with the point center stuff and average at least 26. But I also think their key formula to winning this is you might not be able to out talent the Spurs, but they got to find a way to out tough them. I think he's gonna be questionable, I believe, for game 1, but they're gonna really need his power and strength of Mitchell Robinson. Like he needs to. I don't care. Respect is respect. If he needs to be like Isaiah Hartenstein times 10 and grab Wemby and elbow Wemby and use his 6 fouls if he needs to, you got to do that. You gotta play within the rules, but he got to muck it up. OG Anunoby got to apply pressure with his size. Mikal Bridges, he can be streaky offensively, but he needs to bring his toughness and athleticism. Josh Hart, like I think their role players are going to really have to out tough us, and get their top 2 scorers are going to have to score crazy. They can't afford to have inefficient games or games like Chet Holmgren when they don't even want to shoot the ball. They're going to both have to be aggressive. And I think it's going to take a Herculean effort. I think it's possible, but I just don't think they're going to have enough to answer the talent. But to me, that's the key if they're going to win this series. What do you think they would need to do?
For I honestly think it starts with Mikhail because the last 2 rounds he's shooting like 60% from the field.
Playing
So
good.
can he keep up that? Because he's been going crazy. After the Hawk series was rough, but the last 2 he's been doing his thing. So he has to keep up that efficiency to keep them in games because they're relying on him as the third. Him between him and OG as the third or fourth scorer. So he needs to be great. Then I think this a lot of people think that they're just going to put Cat on Wemby one-on-one. I don't think you do that. I think what you do is you put Cat in help, but I think you could put OG on because OG is their best defender. I would take a chance on putting him on Wemby and having Cat in help because I think that will work better instead of trying to do Cat and Wemby one-on-one. Obviously, it's going to be some Mitchell Robinson minutes, but I think that even because I think it could make Wemby struggle. Wemby's still going to do his thing, but I think that's more likely to make him struggle with how good of a defender that OG is. Then the obvious is Brunson. He has to still be doing his thing. A playmaking, scoring. He still has to be that lead guard that he's been throughout the playoffs.
I think that's a good point. OG's definitely the best defender, and he's one of those players that obviously Wemby got him beat by like a good 8-7 inches. Pause, but obviously he got the height advantage, but OG's one of those defenders. He could play bigger than he appears. He can
Yeah,
almost guard him like a big man. So I do like that. I think that they should start with that. And I do think you don't want Cat burdened with having to be the main defender because that's not where he's at his best. I think Mitchell Robinson, he could be very, very key if they let him run wild and he's doing the dirty work at a high level. I think he could be key and at least bothering Wemby if they're at their
yeah,
best.
yeah. Now for the Spurs, what do the Spurs have to do to win this series?
I honestly think they gotta Wemby got to be aggressive. I think had a couple games. He played a great conference finals, but he had a couple games where I think he wasn't aggressive. He seemed a little passive. Like there should not be games where you're taking like only 12 shots or you're
Yeah,
4 for 15 or you just have 4 rebounds. I think as long as he's aggressive, I think that's what the theme of the Western Conference Finals was. I think there's even a stat that when he scored 26 and above, they won. So once if he scores at least 25, 26, the Spurs are gonna be hard to beat because we know Stephon Castle is gonna always bring what he brings to the table with elite defense. We know what De'Aaron Fox is gonna bring from a scoring and facilitating perspective. But if Wemby got to be aggressive, and I just think limit the turnovers. As long as they play smart with the ball, they got so much talent and depth that multiple players are going to go off. So
yeah. I think one of mine is also Wemby. He needs to play at the top of the key less. I think that was the common theme in the OKC series. He was still good, but it's certain times where it's like he don't need to be at the top of the key here. He can hit obviously he can hit the three, he can shoot deep threes, but just get in the paint, bang down low, and you can get some easier buckets. So that's
exactly,
then the bench is going to be really important here because the Knicks they got depth, but the Spurs got depth too. You got Keldon, you got Harper, and then if Barnes or Luke Cornett just have a crazy game or something, they gonna need that. Even though Luke Cornett just do what he did in Game 7, he get a crazy block, something that swings the momentum. They gonna need stuff like that throughout this series. I feel like, and then yeah, I think Fox has to be the second option. I know he struggled, but like I
I
said
agree with that.
yeah, and short I made earlier, he Game 7, he was good, even though he just had 15 points, but it goes deeper than the stat sheet. When he committed the
Yeah,
foul in the last 30 seconds, OKC had a defensive team on the floor. That's a smart play that people aren't thinking about because you fouled them there. They don't have a chance to sub in them offensive guys.
yeah,
So and
yeah.
veteran experience. So if he can be that second, because it has been games where he struggled, and it's also been games like Game 7 where he was that second guy. So I think he consistently has to be the second guy throughout the finals for them to win.
That's a good. And I honestly feel like I think there's been a lot of parts of the year in this playoffs because he missed a couple games that Stephon Castles looked like our second best player. But as a Spurs fan, in the bigger picture, I still look at De'Aaron Fox as the
Yeah,
the second best player. Like he's more accomplished. He's a multi-time All
yeah,
Star. So I still look at him as that second guy. And I absolutely think you're right. And I think he's actually getting more comfortable the more he plays. And I think that's scary news for the Knicks because he looked very good in Game 7. The 3-point shots falling. It's improved tremendously. He's not a great shooter, but he's became a solid one. And I actually think his on-ball defense. He's been swiping the passing lanes. He's been
yeah,
putting pressure on the ball. He knows how to use his quickness with his hands when he's engaged on defense. Man, Brunson's gonna be in trouble. That's the thing. I know he's great and he can score, but this is the team. Look what they all did to Shea between Stephon, Dylan, and Fox. See, Jalen Brunson's smaller, so that
yeah.
length and speed's gonna bother him too.
Yeah, that's true. I will see because that VJ Edgecombe, we thought he would bother him a little bit, but that was the Sixers' only defender, to be fair. So the Spurs got other bodies, but the
Yeah,
Sixers, they tried to do something with VJ Edgecombe. I think it would have worked if they had more, but it's neither here nor there. They got
yeah,
swept anyways.
yeah.
But now to get to our predictions before the finals, I'll let you go first. Uh, who, who you got in how many games?
I'm gonna go. I have to live with it. A part of me wants to say five, but I'm gonna respect the Knicks. And as a fan, I want to see a good show, a good product. So I'm gonna say the Spurs in six competitive games, and they'll close it out in convincing fashion.
Okay. Historically speaking, when teams go on long winning streaks, it's only when they win 10 plus games, it's only been one time where a team lost. I think this will be the second time, but I think they can take it to seven. I'm gonna take the Spurs in seven. I think when you're going on a long winning streak like this, when you have such a dominant run and they're not winning close games, they dominate their opponents. Like I would, if six is the minimum, I could see six. I'd be surprised if it's less than six. But I'm gonna go. I think the Knicks can push it to seven, but I would go. I got the Spurs winning that, and Wemby taking. If Wemby win, if Wemby wins, he the best player in the league. DPO
Oh,
first
for
team all
real.
and a ring. Yeah, I think the Spurs get it done in seven.
I ain't mad at that. I think it would be good for the league and good for us fans for it to go seven. But if the Knicks aren't careful, it could go five. But I'll stay with six. But I could see seven. I would embrace seven.
Yeah, both teams are in a funny spot because the Spurs just got done with a game seven, so they're gonna be tired. Meanwhile, the Knicks getting a lot of rest, but the Spurs still get a few days though, so it's gonna be interesting. I'm excited for this series. We get a new champion for the eighth straight year, so
Yeah, that's the best feeling. I think I like that sort of parity in the league. Like it's a new team so far. No, not one or two teams are dominating a stretch. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that rest is going to help the Knicks, but I think it hurts you in some ways because Spurs are in game mode. They're hungry.
yep. But with that being said, let the people know where to find you at.
Yo, this was a great conversation. Hopefully, I could come back and be able to talk my shit as the new NBA champions. Imagine if the Spurs lose, man. But man, thanks for having me. And yo, y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel at Wrestling with Things.
Yes, sir. Excited for this finals getting started this Wednesday. Make sure y'all subscribe to my channel, Ed Fluential Sports. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that. And hey, we both, me, you, Sam, we all on the road to 1K. So get us both there. Ed
Our
Fluential Sports,
dogs.
so with things, let's get us both to 1K.
Word.